अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। Hare Krishna Mataji's. So we are going to start with the Science of Self-Realization, this book. And some of you have already completed this book, chapter 1, I came to know in Telugu. So those who wants to listen in English or those who wants to revise once again, yeah, you are all welcome here. And this will be on every Tuesday. And Thursday and Saturday, we have Bhagavad Gita classes. So the reading starts from dedication about the science of self-realization, forward, introduction, then the chapter 1. So we'll go one by one so that we'll understand the book, how it originated, why it was written and all. During this introduction, these 4 pages. So it is written here, it is articles from Back to Godhead magazine. Right? We have our Back to Godhead magazine. So when this book was written, there were many Back to Godhead articles in this magazine. Many articles were there which were very popular, which were read very thoroughly, and they were very popular. They created a lot of thought process in people. They kindled so much of questions and answers in people. They started to seek answers for something which they never thought would be a question, first of all. So these were such articles. Such collection of such articles is placed in one book, so that if anyone is not reading all those magazines, if someone is not subscribed to all those magazines, or sometimes people tend to lose magazines, but the book will be in a very handy form. So all those collection of very popular articles from the Back to Godhead were collected in this book. So that is why it is said articles from Back to Godhead magazine. So dedication. Prabhupada is saying, according to material vision, our beloved spiritual master, guide and friend, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada passed away from this world on November 14, 1977. So Prabhupada
Yes, sir.
has not written this book or compiled this book, but his disciples have compiled this book after Prabhupada left. But actually, he is still present. As Srila Prabhupada often pointed out, there are 2 ways of associating with spiritual master: through his physical presence, Vapu, and through his instructions, Vani. Sometimes we can associate with the spiritual master through his physical presence and sometimes not, but we can always associate with him through his instructions. So the editors have written this dedication that they want to dedicate this book to Prabhupada, although he is not present for the material vision, but he is still present for them. The ones who are following Guru's instructions, for them, Guru is very close because they're always thinking about his instructions, how to follow. They get direction and uh, some indications from Guru all the time. So they feel the presence of Guru all the time. That is the importance of Vani Seva. Okay, this is Bapu Seva is when he's present, his physical association is there. So physically you can serve the body by feeding or by up supplying whatever is necessary to the body. That is Bapu Seva. But also during his presence and after his physical presence and after his physical presence also, this Vani Seva can be always done. So following his instructions and spreading his instructions, all this comes under Vani Seva. We'll move now about the science of self-realization. So as told, the science of self-realization consists of articles published in Back to Godhead magazine from 1958 to 1977. Exceptions: The scriptural basis of Krishna consciousness was published in 1970 as a separate pamphlet. So was a pamphlet. This is not part of the magazine, but it is still included in this book. And also the super consciousness. This particular title is there in this book, which is adapted from Srila Prabhupada's purport to Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, 15th chapter, 45th verse. So from this purport, this particular topic is taken, and that is also included in this book. This was not part of any Back to Godhead magazine, right? So similarly, this topic is there, the incarnation of love of God. This is from lecture of Srila Prabhupada. When Srila Prabhupada gave lecture in December 1966 about this particular verse from Madhya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, 20th chapter, 330 verse, 235 verse, this Madhya Leela verses, Prabhupada gave a lecture and he gave it in 1966. So that is also included in this book under the title The Incarnation of Love of God. And one more pamphlet is included in this book, which is Chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. This appeared as a separate pamphlet in 1967. So devotees used to distribute these pamphlets and request people to chant and come and chant together with them in temples, attend the temple programs, all this. So these pamphlets, what was written on the pamphlet was also very closely edited and sometimes approved by Prabhupada. So it is Prabhupada who is very much in the writing of the pamphlets. So that is also there in this book. And there was a Bengali poem written by Srila Prabhupada, which is titled Markine Bhagavad Dharma. In 1965, he has written this. And this was when Srila Prabhupada arrives in America. Okay. And so that same thing, Srila Prabhupada arrives in America. This title is given to this poem and translated into English, and that is also is present in this book. The articles were variously edited by Ramadasa, Hayagrivadasa, Jayadvaita Swami, and Ravida Dasa. Jayadvaita Swami compiled the articles, and Mukunda Swami and Drutakarma Dasa wrote the introductory material for the book and its chapters. Okay, so these are all very nice disciples of Srila Prabhupada who are very much dedicated to his service from the beginning, and few joined later, but few were from the beginning. So these articles were edited and compiled, and also introductory material is written by some of these disciples. So the foreword, who is writing this? One of the disciples, no? We'll see the name at the bottom. Mukunda Goswami. Yeah. So it is said, no, that Mukunda Goswami and Drutakarma Dasa wrote the introductory material for the book and its chapter. So what introduction Mukunda Goswami Maharaj is writing, that is there here as a forward note. Okay. So now this is in the words of Mukunda Goswami. From the very start, I knew that His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was the most extraordinary person I have ever met. The first meeting occurred in the summer of 1966 in New York City. A friend had invited me to hear a lecture by an old Indian Swami on Lower Manhattan's Bowery. Overwhelmed with curiosity about a Swami lecturing on a skid row, I went there and felt my way up a pitch black staircase. A bell like rhythmic sound got louder and clearer as I climbed higher. Finally, I reached the fourth floor and opened the door, and there he was. So it was a fourth floor and there was no lift, right? There was no elevator. And this old Indian Swami, he was lecturing there. And this staircase was also pitch black dark. There was no light or anything. So, but he heard from the time he started to take the staircase, he heard some bell-like sound. This kartal sound. And as he got up the staircase, the sound was more loud and more clear. And it was all about, curiosity that led him there. He was very curious to know what is happening, like in a Manhattan Bowery. Why would anyone lecture and that to a big, Indian Swami, old Indian Swami? It is, they said. So, what is that curiosity? Because Manhattan's Bowery is not a very nice place to have this kind of association. It is not expected that such places will have this kind of association. It is almost like, what a downtrodden place of a city, like how our slum areas they say, in India, that kind of. So mostly people are not educated, they are poor, they are so mostly they are homeless. These kind of people live in such places. And what is an Indian Swami doing there? And that too, he says he's lecturing there. So he got curious. These two connection we wanted to make how uh, this place and this Swami are together. He didn't understand that. So, okay, next paragraph. About 50 feet away from where I stood, at the other end of a long, dark room, he sat on a small dais, his face and saffron robes radiant under a small light. He was elderly, perhaps 60 or so, I thought, and he sat cross legged in an erect, stately posture. His head was shaven, and his powerful face and reddish horn rimmed glasses gave him the look of a monk who had spent most of his life absorbed in study. His eyes were closed, and he softly chanted a simple Sanskrit prayer while playing a hand drum. The small audience joined in at intervals in call and response fashion. A few played hand cymbals, which accounted for the bell like sound I had heard. Fascinated, I sat down quietly at the back, tried to participate in the chanting, and waited. So, what was happening there? When he entered, first of all, it was again a dark room. It was long, and at the end of that room, there was a small dais on which the Swami was sitting, and his face was uh, radiant, and he was sitting erect in a very stately posture, which is a very, like a royal or some very important person sitting. His head was shaven, and he looked like how a monk who has spent most of his life absorbed in study. His eyes were closed. So when people were coming, sitting, and going, Prabhupada was immersed in his prayer. His eyes were closed and he softly chanted. And when he chanted, the audience repeated. This was the call and the response fashion. And he was playing the drum, and few in the audience were playing the kartals, hand cymbals. Then he understood, okay, this is the sound that I'm hearing from the downstairs when I'm taking the staircase. This bell-like sound is from here. People are playing these hand cymbals. And he got fascinated. And he tried also to participate in the chanting because Prabhupada was saying some Sanskrit player and prayer, and others were repeating it. So he thought, I will also try to follow what he's saying and try to repeat the chanting. And then he waited how long this will go on. Let us see what will happen next. After a few moments, the Swami began lecturing in English, apparently from a huge Sanskrit volume that lay open before him. Occasionally, he would refer to the book, but more often quote from memory. The sound of the language was beautiful, and he followed each passage with meticulously detailed explanations. So So that was a huge Sanskrit book, and the language was beautiful. And Prabhupada was referring to the book, but mostly he was quoting from memory also. He was quoting other Sanskrit verses from his memory while he is speaking, and meticulous, detailed explanation on each passage. So he was reading and explaining. He was not telling something which is not written, which is not an authentic book, or kind of. That was uh, the meaning of, he was seeing, he was observing that he was following the each passage. He sounded like a scholar. His vocabulary intricately laced with philosophical terms and phrases. Elegant hand gestures and animated facial expressions added considerable impact to his delivery. The subject matter was the most weighty I have ever encountered. I am not this body. I am not an Indian. You are not Americans. We are all spirit souls. So he could understand that this is the most weighty, most heavy matter I have ever heard in my life. Uh, And his delivery, Swami's delivery was very impactful because it was, first of all, the vocabulary was laced with philosophical terms and phrases. It is not like some spoken English, like everyday words. Those words were having a lot of philosophical meanings, and philosophical terms and phrases were used in his language. And his gestures, like hand movements and animated facial expressions, everything added to that delivery. After the lecture, someone gave me a pamphlet printed in India. A photo showed the Swami handing three of his books to Indian Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri. The caption quoted Mrs. Shastri as saying that all Indian government libraries should order the books. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is doing great work, the Prime Minister said in another small tract. And his books are significant contributions to the salvation of mankind. I purchased copies of the books which I learned the Swami had brought over from India. After reading the jacket flaps, the small pamphlet, and various other literature, I began to realize that I had just met one of India's most respected spiritual leaders. So, this is a self explanatory paragraph about how Mukunda Goswami, and that time, what was his name? Michael, right? Michael Grant. So Michael was uh, handed over one pamphlet wherein the photograph of Srila Prabhupada with Lal Bahadur Shastri is there, and Lal Bahadur Shastri is being given three books by Prabhupada, and the caption quoted that Shastri had a lot of respect, and he said that his Prabhupada is doing great work. All the books, all the libraries should have these books. And Michael also purchased some books, and this small pamphlet was with him, and then understood that by reading the jacket flaps, in the sense he had not read the full book but the cover pages, and he understood, he just realized that I have met one of the India's most respected spiritual leaders. But I could not understand why a gentleman of such distinction was residing and lecturing in the Bowery of all places. So this was there in his head from the beginning. He's curious about why a Swami will be living in such a place. So he was certainly well educated and by all appearances born of an aristocratic Indian family. I can see that he is not from any uneducated background. He is not from any poor background. But why is he living? Why was he living in such poverty? What in the world has brought him here? One afternoon, several days later, I stopped in to visit him and to find out. So After several days, he wanted to know more about the Swami. Why is he here in this poverty-stricken life? Why is he living like this? What has brought him here to this part of the world? So, out of again, he went, but not during the lecture time. This time he went uh, in the afternoon just to visit him and ask him, like, why are you here? To my surprise, Srila Prabhupada, as I later came to call him, was not too busy to talk with me. He thought that if I go, whether he will answer my questions or not, whether he'll be having any time for me or not. But then he understood that he was not too busy to talk with me. In fact, it seemed that he was prepared to talk all day. He wanted to give as much as time as possible. He was warm and friendly and explained that he had accepted the renounced order of life in India in 1959 and that he was not allowed to carry or earn money for his personal needs. So he told them that I had accepted sannyas, and after accepting sannyas, we do not deal with money too much. We don't earn money and all. He had completed his studies at the University of Calcutta many years ago and had raised a family. And then he had left his eldest sons in charge of family and business affairs as the age old Vedic culture prescribes. So he's explaining about the Vedic culture, how it works, because this is very new to the Americans to know that, okay, once you get old, we don't earn or we don't live with the family like before and keep taking the responsibilities till dying. And that is the culture of America at that time. No one heard of, because you're old now, you have to take retirement from family and uh, concentrate more, focus more on your spiritual well-being. That was not a concept at all. But in those times, this concept was there, which is now also it is disappearing very fast. People don't want to give up their homes or give up their jobs or give up their positions if they're in some politics or anything till the last breath. But that was not the case. In Vedic culture, Prabhupada is explained to Michael that we are supposed to educate them ourselves, right? We raise a family, and we then, after our family is raised and we get old, we leave. We leave everything in the eldest sons in charge. And then that is a Vedic culture, how it prescribes. And after accepting the renounced order, what happened after accepting his sannyas? He had arranged a free passage on an Indian freighter, Scindia Steamship Company's Jaladuta, through an old family friend. And in September 1965, he had sailed from Bombay to Boston armed with only $7 worth of rupees, a trunk of books, and a few clothes. So, what was there with him? He had $7 worth of rupees and that Indian rupees, which would, if they convert into dollars, it would be $7 only. And a trunk of books, few clothes, that's all. And he had a free passage on this ship. And this is called Jaladuta. And this belonged to a company called Scindia Steamship Company. So it was a steamship. And his spiritual master, his divine grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had entrusted him with delivering India's Vedic teachings to the English speaking world. And this is why, at age 69, he had come to America. He told me he wanted to teach Americans about Indian music, cooking, languages, and various other arts. I was mildly amazed. So, such a person, he left his uh, family and he's left his business affairs. He is not earning money anymore because he is taken sannyas order, renounced order of life, and he has an instruction of his spiritual master to carry. And the instruction is that he was entrusted with delivering India's Vedic teaching to the English speaking world. And at age of 69, he had come to India and he said he wants to teach Americans. He wants to teach about what? Music, cooking, languages, and various other arts. So Srila Prabhupada is introducing himself in a very humble manner. Although we can see that it is a great sacrifice and great faith he has in the instructions given by his spiritual master. And he had left everything. He has literally nothing speaking, but he has the order of his spiritual master to carry. To hear this and believe in this itself is not so easy for people from a background where they do not even know what is a spiritual master, what is a sannyas order, what is meant by having faith in the spiritual master's instructions. This is all very vague and very new to hear. So it was so amazing. And and what happened later on, these people who heard these and who associated with Prabhupada, they also developed the same kind of mood to serve spiritual masters' instructions, right? That is why we see in the forward that introductory first page that Vapu and Vani Seva of the spiritual master. They never think that their spiritual master is not there with them. So by seeing Prabhupada taking his spiritual master's orders is strictly, the disciples of Prabhupada also developed the same mood, and they are saying that Vapu or Vani Seva is the same. That much trust and that much faith they also developed. So the kind of association we have, we develop the same kind of qualities. With Prabhupada's dedication to his Guru Maharaj, he created so many disciples who are dedicated to him. Right. So next is, I saw that Srila Prabhupada slept on a small mattress and that his clothes hung on lines at the back of the room. So there was only one room, right? There was only this one room on the fourth floor. And Prabhupada he was looking around what all this Swami has. So he found one small mattress. And there was a hung on lines at the back of the room. There were some clothes where they were drying in summer afternoon heat. They were all inside only, were drying, but just from the heat that would come inside the room, with that only the clothes were drying. He washed them himself and cooked his own food on an ingenious utensil he had fashioned with his own hands in India. Okay, so this utensil, this Prabhupada himself, he had designed that utensil and he was cooking in it. And he washed the clothes himself. And in this four-layer apparatus, what is this utensils? This is designed by Prabhupada. It was four-layer apparatus. He cooked four preparations at once. So it was having four layers, four boxes, one on the other, and four preparations were cooked at once. So this was a utensil. This was a, a mm, vessel that was created, that was designed by Prabhupada. By his own hands, he designed this. Stacked all around him and his ancient looking portable typewriter in another section of the room were seemingly endless manuscripts. Now, there were so many manuscripts. Uh, all around him, there were manuscripts and manuscripts. So, manuscripts means a man has typed those kinds of scripts. He spent almost all his walking hours, about 20 in 24, waking hours, about 20 in 24, I learned, typing the sequels to the three volumes I had purchased. So that those three books were there, that were given to, that was the photograph was there, no, that was given to Lal Bahadur Shastri. Those three books, the volumes, Michael also had purchased. Now he is learning that all these manuscripts are for the sequels to the three volumes, the next volumes, fourth volume, fifth volume, sixth volume, all that has to come. So out of 24 hours, 20 hours, the Swami is preparing the sequels to the volumes. It was a projected 60 volume set called the Srimad Bhagavatam. How many more volumes he has to write? Only 3 are completed. Now he has to complete 60. And virtually it was the encyclopedia of spiritual life. So you want to know about spiritual life? It is like an encyclopedia. Everything related to it will be found in Srimad Bhagavatam. Then Michael, he's saying, I wished him luck with the publishing and he invited me back for Sanskrit classes on Saturdays and for his evening lectures on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I accepted, thanked him, and left, marveling at his incredible determination. So during his first meeting with Prabhupada, he was amazed. And in the second meeting, he was marveling him. What kind of determination he has. All alone, he's spending 20 hours in 24 to type the sequels to these three volumes. And Prabhupada was not very fast at typing, these old fingers, very slow. And he was having this patience and determination to complete such a great work at that age. So it marveled him. So, and what, along with that typing, what he was doing, he was telling that on Saturdays, I give Sanskrit classes, so please come. And I have evening lectures on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So, Prabhupada was also speaking, not only just writing books, but he was conducting all these classes. Then, a few weeks later, it was July 1966. I had the privilege of helping Srila Prabhupada relocate to a somewhat more respectable neighborhood on 2nd Avenue. So Michael was now going and meeting Prabhupada regularly, and in few weeks he had developed relation and he got a service also. And he got a privilege, he's selling. Privilege meaning that he feels himself very proud to have such opportunity to help Prabhupada relocate to a little bit better, respectable neighborhood on 2nd Avenue. Some friends and I pitched in and rented a ground floor storefront and second floor apartment to the rear of a little courtyard in the same building. So what was this relocation where they relocated? Actually, he had some help with some friends also who were also following Prabhupada's lectures, coming to Prabhupada's lectures. They all together, they rented one ground floor storefront in this building. Storefront meaning like how shops, no? Shops are called storefronts there. The shops are facing to the road on the ground floor. So that one shop they had rented, and in the same building on the second floor there was an apartment. So here we call flat, they call apartment, and we call what we call apartment they call as a building. Okay, so on the second floor there was this flat which was for living, and on the ground floor there was this storefront or a shop. So both of these shop and the flat they rented, and the same building, the second floor flat was on the rear, on the back side, and the storefront, the shop was on the front side. And there was a small courtyard also at the back, little place. So the lectures and chantings continued. And within 2 weeks, a rapidly growing congregation was providing for the storefront, by this time a temple and the apartment. So within 2 weeks, the congregation was growing, and they were also providing for this temple. The shop became a temple now. It is no more a storefront. And the apartment that Prabhupada was living, the flat. By now, Srila Prabhupada was instructing his followers to print and distribute leaflets, and the owner of a record company had invited him to record an LP of the Hare Krishna chant. So now he had followers, he had uh, instructing them to print and distribute leaflets or pamphlets, and he also these followers also had some connections because of this leaflet distribution. Everyone was coming to know about what he's doing, how he's chanting and having followers. So someone wanted to, a record company owner wanted to record the chant, and he was invited to record. He did, and it was a huge success. In this new location, he was teaching chanting, Vedic philosophy, music, japa meditation, fine art, and cooking. So, Prabhupada, whatever he said, I will be teaching all these, right? In the first meeting with Michael, he is teaching all that. At first, he cooked. He always taught by example. So, how was he teaching? At first, by his own example. He first cooked and he taught by example. The results were the most wonderful vegetarian meals I have ever experienced. When Prabhupada cooked, it was amazing, and it was like never eaten before, never tasted before. Srila Prabhupada would even serve everything out himself. It is not that he will just cook and say, okay, now you carry on, serve yourself. No. He would serve everything out himself to all these people, all the followers who are coming there with the listeners, the guests. He used to serve them on. The meals usually consisted of a rice preparation, a vegetable dish, chapatis, tortilla like whole wheat patties. So chapatis no one knew, so he's comparing that with tortillas. And dal, a justfully spiced mung bean or split pea soup. So dal they would see as some bean soup, and this was there mostly. The meals consisted of rice, vegetable, chapatis, and dal. The spicing, the cooking medium, ghee or clarified butter, and the close attention paid to the cooking temperature and other details all combined to produce taste treats totally unknown to me. So the spices, the ghee, this was unknown to them, and the temperatures of adjusting the temperature for each and every dish. This was all not known to them. Others' opinions of the food called prasada